You read three words. You read three words that you probably don't think that you would ever see, and it says crash victim dies. And then it changes. It's not only about you, not only about your fears and your wounds. Now you begin to see and to realize that our choices have this ripple effect that can affect other people, other families. And so this was the reality on July 17th, 2009. And I think at the core of us, we long for human connection. There's an ember in all of us that just want to feel like we belong, find that place in that space. And so I was in that pursuit. And so when some of the friends that I had growing up throughout the younger years, they weren't the popular kids, but I needed you to see me a certain way, And so I walked away from those friends, probably the worst mistake of my life, and try to find new friends that would give me the image. My sophomore year, some new friends that I developed, they asked me to come over to a party and pop the pill and take the drink and, some of the things that are pretty typical in the high school experience, right, wrong, or indifferent. There's just these opportunities for you to have a choice to compromise yourself or not to compromise yourself. So now as I'm getting involved with drugs and alcohol and just some sort of destructive things, I went from straight A's to straight F's. My senior year, I'm a full-blown alcoholic and an addict and just a lot of destructive mentalities. And I got expelled my senior year. I didn't graduate. And in that moment, you begin to lose hope. You begin to feel like you're labeled from the community around you, and you start to have this internal battle. Why should I even try to change? Maybe what it is what it was always supposed to be. I don't have a purpose. This is just kind of like what life dealt me. It was the deck, and now I just got to live with it. So here I am now, really 7 years removed from being a straight A student as a freshman. It was a typical Friday night, and that new group of friends that I had developed over the years, there was a party, and I'm 23, what's the big deal? Let's just go to the party and have a few drinks. And I went, and when the alcohol ran out, we went to a bar. I had a few more drinks, and then the bar was gonna close, and we were gonna go to another after party. Actually, we're going to my friend's house where we were all gonna go to, and I knew him really well, and they asked me if I wanted to leave a little bit early, and so, and kind of get the party ready. And I was sure, why not, but I was too drunk and I wasn't gonna drive, so I remember I called my friend, Priscilla. Priscilla had moved to Alabama a few months previous to this night. She had friended a group of us, and she wasn't there that night, and I needed a driver. So I called Priscilla, and she shows up. But somewhere in that process, that's when everything really changed. Somehow I got the keys. Still today, we don't know how this moment transpired. She was basically sober, and I was extremely inebriated. But nevertheless, I got the keys. And next thing I know, I wake up. I wake up in a hospital bed. I remember leaving the bar and getting to her car. We were right around the corner from TJ's house, and I can still hear her voice. She said the word tree. I was in a helicopter, and I woke up in this hospital with police officers over top of me asking me questions. Who is she? What's her name? And her name's Priscilla, and I'm confused. And they wouldn't really tell me anything because I wasn't family. And they said she's alive, but she's struggling. That morning, for some reason, they didn't arrest me. They let me leave. And they just told my mom, who had showed up, we'll be in contact with you guys soon. And on the ride home, my mom was able to collect some information of what happened that night, because my sister being a nurse, we didn't know the specifics per se, but we just knew things were going to change. And there's a lot of trauma to Priscilla, and she didn't put on her seatbelt that night. When we hit the tree at a high rate of speed, she flung forward, and the case of beer I put in the back seat, it flung forward, and the seatbelt restrained me, but she didn't have on hers, and upon impact, she was just catapulted forward, and the windshield and her and the case of beers kind of collided. You know, as my mom's telling me some of the information, you think this happens to everybody else, not people like me, not like you. It's the dangers of this thing, right? When you begin to feed a bear cub, the bear cub's cute and it's cuddly, that addiction. But eventually the bear cub grows up and it's a full-grown grizzly, and if you don't keep feeding it, it can kill you. And so you begin feeding it, and next thing you know, you can't break free from it. That was my addiction. And Carolyn, Priscilla's mom, and Olivia, her sister, about 3 days after the wreck. First off, I'm waiting for just the police to show up probably and arrest me, right? Like the unknown, what's gonna happen? What's this even mean? They want me to call them, and so I pick up the phone and I'm weeping, and I remember what Carolyn said to me and Olivia that on that call, and they're emotional, and they say, Nathan, we're angry, we're sad, we're mad, we don't know what to feel. But we just don't think one dumb choice should destroy two families' lives. We want you to know in this moment we've picked love over hate, and we decide to forgive you. And they asked me to do two things. Don't let our daughter Priscilla please pass away for nothing, and try to make the world a better place. And of course you say yes, right? Like your brain's trying to register, because in today's society, you know, they had every right to hate me and demand justice, and for that to be me and not her. And to be honest, I think I'm wrestling with that place in that moment. Like I knew the struggles, my hurts, the poor decisions, the brokenness. I would have did anything to reverse those roles. And here's this family finding this craziest courage I've ever seen in my life. They stepped into their most difficult time in their life, and they picked love over hate and to forgive. And I said yes. But just because a family found radical courage to forgive doesn't mean my choices didn't have consequences. And so at 23 years old, when I should have been a senior graduating college, just a few years removed from when things were better, I got sentenced to 15 years of prison, sentenced to a crime of reckless homicide, vehicle manslaughter. So here I am now at 23 with this family forgiving me, the brokenness of my past, the struggles of the story of my life. And now face to face with 15 years of incarceration. To be honest, it would have been easy to say I quit. I gave up, throwing the towel. I come from a broken family. I came from the struggles of wanting to live life and all my mental health, and just the struggles of the anxieties, the depressions, the eating disorders, the anger, the rage, the drugs now, the alcohol. Now my choices affected another family that'll never go back to what it was. I had to come to terms with something. What am I gonna do? You know, I think a lot of times we want to change, we know we need to change, and we should change, but nothing changes. Because change is tough. Change takes vulnerability. You have to confront yourself. And here I was now at 23, and I had to confront the thing that I've been most afraid of my entire life, me. I used to blame everything on the trauma, the external sources, the wounds, but now I had to come face to face with me. And I remember it was in that moment, because I really wanted to keep the promise to the Owens family, to Carolyn and Olivia. And my dad, even though the wounds that happened in my past with him, he had always had this quote, as long as there's breath in your lungs, Nathan, there's hope in your heart. You're never a product of your environment. You're a product of what you find the courage to do. And so it was then, as a 23-year-old dude, that I looked in the mirror facing 15 years and I wrote the words, "Change the world." And I slapped them with toothpaste on the wall of my little prison cell. And I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know how to keep a promise to a family and what does change the world even mean, but I knew what I had been doing up to that point wasn't working. And so every day I started waking up, owning my story, confronting me. There's a quote that I live by now, and it's, "I would rather confront, fight, and fail than settle for just staying the same." And it started then. Not when my circumstance would get better, it was then. And so now I have a choice. What am I going to do with my day? It was about me. Can I every day wake up and realize life is a choice? I can build or I can destroy. I can feed and it can grow, or I can starve and it can die. Taking ownership that, the journey and the beauty of the symphony of our lives, that regardless of the chaos, there are areas that even in my chaos, I can control. The prison started a program, a therapeutic program, and it was basically a cognitive program. Change the way you think, it can change you. And I started in that program, and my life was really, finding a balance. And it was so effective, it was lowering the recidivism rate in the state of Indiana. So they wanted to start to really promote this program. And so when they went to find an ambassador, they got the permission to take somebody on the inside that was a prisoner, a convict, an inmate, and let them begin to try to be a spokesman. I didn't know that was going to happen. I was every day just doing the next right thing for me, but it created an opportunity. You never know who's watching. You never know what's around you. And so when they went to pick somebody, they selected me. And so here I am now 2 years into this 15-year sentence, and I'm getting opportunities to leave the prison in street clothes and to go all across the state of Indiana and speak at different venues and different locations about just this program. I spoke to about 5,000 to 7,000 people in this 1.5 year period, and the governor's council at the time, they got wind of about it, and I remember a letter came in, and it basically said that this young man is more effective out there than he is in here. And I walked, and I got released 11.5 years early. I got released in 2012 and 2013, around that time, and to be honest, when I put "Change the World" on the mirror, I didn't know what that meant, but I was beginning to find my why. I always tell people, I don't need you to give me your thesis of exactly what your future is going to look like. Some of us know those things. Some of us have that vision, and that's exactly what we're going to do, and they execute it, and it's amazing, but that's not everybody's song. For me, it's about having a direction. Change the World to me was just a direction. So every single day, as I was moving towards that, the details begin to become more vivid. It's almost like I had a coloring book, and I had this blank piece of paper that was a picture of whatever scene that I wanted to be, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. But over time, I would pick up the purple, and I'd pick up the green, I'd pick up the blue, and as I'm just doing the next thing, the picture got more beautiful, it became more vivid, it came into focus. You don't have to have every detail, but start moving towards it. And over time, consistently, it begins to be more defined. And so for me, we're afraid of what will it look like. We're afraid of failing. We're afraid of being vulnerable. Fear drives us. But I've learned the more I punch fear, and that fear's not final, and no feeling's final, and that we can do hard things and we can make mistakes. If you can step into your story, you have no idea the ripple effect that can happen around you. We can build or we can tear down. And now I just live a life where every day, how can I walk into a room and add value to people?